lot of writing, maybe a lot of talking to each other. Because the hour we are living in is very dangerous. we all must facilitate and participate. All right. Dada yangu pale mwenye shati ya samawati. I'm just showing off with the little Swahili I have. No, it's a lot. Just that it doesn't measure to Tanzanian level. All right. Karibuni. Welcome, everyone. I'll maybe ask us to get off our phones and be here so that we can all be together, share our knowledge and wisdom with one another. Maybe I'll start with just introducing myself, and then I'll allow you also to introduce yourself so I know you, seeing as I missed a bit of the start of our time together. Yeah, so my name is Purity Kagweria. I'm Kenyan. I'm a facilitator, I'm a coach. I'm also a funder for girls and young women. I've spent a lot of, maybe the last 20 years or so, working on girls programming and funding. And the last, 4 years maybe, that is very serious. I started to get into coaching, and the reason I started coaching was because I started off in leadership when I was very young, and I could see the things that I struggled with and the only reason I made it through and made it to work with many organizations after was because I started to get coaching. Christine, who is here, who is the main facilitator, was my very first coach. So, and from her and a few other coaches I had then, I started to just develop this passion for accompanying people. So in my funding work, I really love the idea of accompanying groups, because I definitely see that when we all share our knowledge, then we all become better. Mostly we are working towards the same goal, but we don't talk to each other. So we tend to lose each other. So I'm very committed to breaking down the barriers that sometimes make us, that divide us. So that if someone is a funder and the other one is an implementer, there's always such a power divide. I'm very committed to working around those powers so that we can all enter this work, because we all come into it from a place of passion. There are very few of us here who are just looking for a job. Then it found you. Sindio, we all went to look for a specific job in a particular organization. So because I understand that and I'm passionate about girls and young women, I started to train as a coach just to be able to accompany those groups. So sometimes I also facilitate processes of meetings. I used to run a funders collective and things like that. But that's the brief history of my life. I've been part of the Collective Rising. This is my 2nd year. So I'm excited to be here and to meet all of you. And I look forward to our time together. So maybe we can just go around and share our names and our organizations. Maybe just a quick, I think that's enough actually. That's a good place to start. We are going to be talking to each other a lot. So maybe we start here. Mm.
Lenny Oputan from Kimanyangeo.
Masaidio Kalenga from Kimanyangeo.
Linda Mwangi, same organization.
I'm Joseph Lampel, also from Kimanya.
I'm Jackson Ikaigamba from Waman Girls.
And I'm Sono from Kimanya. Also the Uganda listening from Waman Girls.
I'm Mary Kioma from Aman Girls.
Agrippina John, Aman Girls.
Mwanawa Mtani, Aman Girls Organization, Tanzania.
Elizabeth Dosa, Amani Girls.
Regina Kisheo, Amani Girls.
Eunice Akwera, Fitch from Uganda. Patrick Kochen, Fitch, Uganda.
Kandi Alum, Fitch, Uganda.
Hemi Zumlamai Okelo from Uganda, Fitch.
Victoria Harriet Tanyao, Fitch, Uganda.
Fantastic. All right, so we are here, and our main topic for this evening is gender, gender equity and inclusion. So we are going to have lots of conversations and do a few exercises, and hopefully, as we go through the content that I have prepared, we get to see ourselves and see our institutions in the conversations that we are having. So as we get started, I think just to share our session objectives, they are pretty straightforward. We'll unpack gender equity, a couple of any terminologies that we use on a regular basis, and what inclusion within our organization would look like. A lot of this is thinking, and some of these things will fall in place by Wednesday when we are leaving, or maybe even later on when we come back for the next session. And then we are going to analyze power and power dynamics within our own institutions. And then we are going to create a plan to address inclusion in our institutions. That's likely going to be tomorrow morning when we meet with the other two groups that I've already spent time with. So, we are first going to go through terminologies around gender and then power, around gender, power, and inclusion, and then in between there, we'll watch some videos, we'll do some exercises, and hopefully all of these help land some of the things we are constantly talking about and doing within our organizations. So as we get started, I want to invite us. We may want to mingle or stay. I see some of us, we are just people from our own institutions, this is going to be a good test of some of these things that we talk about often. I want us to take a piece of paper, and in the table we are on, this table, share with us your definition of gender, just gender. What do you understand by gender? And if you have an example of how that shows up in your organization. Then the next group, let's talk about gender equality. What do you understand by gender equality? This other group, we talk about gender equity. And this group, we talk about gender risks and barriers in leadership. Yeah? Yeah. So gender equality, gender equity, gender risks and barriers in leadership. Let's take the next 5 minutes, and then we shall come back to share. I do have a bell, right? So in 5 minutes, I shall ring it accordingly. And there are no right or wrong answers, so feel free to express yourself. So for the people on gender equality, talk about also how it shows up in your organization. On gender equity, how does it also show up in our organization or our work? And you're generally covering everything. As leaders, we are all here because we are in leadership. So talk about any gender risks and barriers in leadership.
definition gender equality inamaanisha? Equal opportunity. Kwetu inamaanisha equal opportunities kwa both male and female kwenye au kwetu inamaanisha kuwaempower women. Tuko kuliko 17 yenyewe.
Mngesema hivyo naelewa.
Organizational kuyapa hayo makundi yote ya kijinsia iko chances za opportunity. Sio employment tu, hata program implementation kwenye beneficiaries.
Magermenta wenyewe wako wengi.
Thank you. We started our discussion with just the very basic of what comes to mind.
Sorry, I'm hearing other voices that are not on the mic. Okay, thank you. Yes?
So we started with our very basic understanding of what gender could mean when someone speaks. We're thinking male and female, women and men. But we also thought that gender goes beyond just the sex of an individual. And we don't know how to completely define what goes beyond an individual as a person. So I don't know if.
As far as you reached, yeah, thank you. That's a good definition of it, because everything you said is covered there in. Any other offers from the rest to add to what they've said? And yeah, we are defining gender, and the other bit of the question was how you think it shows up, whether it's being men and women. How does that show up in your organization or in the work that we do? Yeah? Yes, my sister.
Just defining gender from the knowledge I've been exposed to. So gender is a socially constructed beliefs or ideas on what should happen to a male sex or a female sex. Yeah, it's the way I understand it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and you use the word socially. What do we understand by socially? Socially. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I think the way I understand that is about the defined roles based on your sex.
Yeah.
That the society has thought about.
Yeah. Yeah, all of these things are correct, yeah? And when we talk about socially, like here now, this is a social setting. We can define things about us, yeah? And so the things about men and women that have already been defined from a social perspective based on where they are and what they do. Because there are some things we know before we started seeing white people in this country or in our settings of the world. For example, there are things that were done differently by men, or men did and women didn't do. But now, as we've continued to interact with the rest of the world, we keep seeing that there are things that happen, for example, in Uganda, or in other spaces, that when you go elsewhere, they are done very differently. That's a social construct, because it's very dependent on the people of that particular setting. And when we talk about gender in our own institutions, there are things that happen within our institutions because it's a particular type of an institution. For example, I think it took a very long time to go to government offices and find they have the sanitary towel bin, right? Even in many places now, I don't know if you've had these conversations in your countries where you go to a very good restaurant, but there's no place to change children diapers, yeah? Or if it's there, but you don't know these things, yeah? Or if it's there, it's attached to the women toilets, yeah? But then as these conversations have continued to evolve on who changes the baby, then you find that in some places, it's actually neutral. You find it between the two toilets, yeah? There's the gents and there's the ladies, and then in between there is a place for changing babies because the roles have evolved. We are saying, or the world now accepts that men can also, their hands can function when it comes to changing a diaper, right? Yeah. But if you haven't traveled, our basic setting, even of the people we program for, some people, if you're in there, they've never left, what is that place I know in Tanzania? Huko ndani, they've never come to the city. So there are things that are so alien to them. But you go to them and try to tell them, oh, by the way, if you're going to the hospital, accompany your wife. And this man is looking at you like, me to be seen carrying a baby, you see? So there are those things that are very contextual and that are changing, right? Yeah. So when we define gender, is all of those things that we have said. Is a social construct, meaning it changes. It's what women, men, girls, boys, and now we have other gender. Sorry, my brother, do you? No, I was explaining that this is what I was trying to. Yeah. So. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, so it's all of these. And now we know there are all these other identities, right? Where, I don't know if you guys came across this story a few years ago, either last year or the year before, when they said a man had gotten pregnant and given birth, yeah? well, maybe I'm I'm deep state in these things of gender. But it turned out that the fella was transgender. He had a womb. He was a woman who then had the change to become a man. So he still had the womb, but so that's how he was able to actually carry the baby. We know even as science has continued to evolve, I think the one thing that has not truly evolved to, scientifically is a few things about men and women. But of course, in our world and in the spaces that we engage in, and even sometimes when you go speak to funders or some of people who come to visit you, then you know that you are a bit more expansive than this. Yeah, than these people now are a lot more open to different situations. And definitely we've said, as you said, it's not just the sex, yeah? There's a distinction of our genders based on sex, but it's not just that. And sometimes in our own institutions, how the gender shows up is maybe there are roles that only women take those roles, yeah? If you look at the bias around, for example, human resource, if we think broadly even outside our organizations, who are more likely to take up to be in HR? Is the women, right? Most of the time, because it's seen as a nurturing role. And it is assumed that women are natural nurturers. However, when you go to recruiting for C-suite opportunities, you find that there are actually a lot more men in those particular places. So we can think about our organizations. Are there any specific things that we do? And we have assumed that that's the women who do, that's the men who do those particular things because we live in this world and it shows up. Yes, my brother?
Oh, is a question?
I thought you were putting...
No, I was going to answer because I thought you were asking.
You can answer. You can contribute.
In some places I've seen that early child education is something also that people assume a lot of women are better at that.
Yes, absolutely. And you see, like, if you're teaching children, it feels like there's nowhere else to go, yeah? Your nursery school teacher probably, if your parents went to the same school, probably they taught them. Because it doesn't feel like child education, then you graduate with these children, they remain in a particular domain, yeah? So that's very correct. There's even nursing, actually. Yeah, nursing. In fact, there are research that shows that women, their hands are soft, yeah? So they are more likely, like, if you're in pain, they're not going to pull your hand and break it further, yeah? All these things. And, sometimes we think these things are so removed, but I've had, a friend of mine she's an engineer, she does networking, the cabling, eh? And she says women are better at finishing, when they're tying the cables and whatever they need to do. She said women make less mistakes. However, when it comes to hiring women, she doesn't find them. Why? Because very few girls have been through this line of science so that they are qualified to take up those particular jobs. And when she finds a 10 that she finds out of, say, 100 men, as soon as they've been with her for 6 months, they stabilize, their income is stable, they suddenly, not even suddenly, I guess they were already maybe dating, but they start dating, they get pregnant. Once they get pregnant, they don't come back, yeah? Once they go on maternity leave, now it is assumed, and our societies do this all the time, right? If you have a baby, they're like, people used to ask me all the time, you travel all the time, what about your baby? What about your husband? I'm like, what about them? Like, because people assume that I should be at home because I have a child, yeah? Or when you get newly married, people assume you should stay home to take care of mostly, I guess. I don't know, maybe the men who are married here can share whether they encountered any of these things or stay at home and take care of your wife. But these things anyway happen, yeah? And even in our own institutions, in ways that sometimes we know or don't know, we can be enablers of such situations that say, you can only do one thing because this is your gender, or this is what is socially acceptable that women do. Moving to the next group on gender equality.
Yes, so from our group, we define gender equality as a state where the male and the female have equal opportunities in the political, education and the social aspect, as well as the economic aspects.
Thank you so much. So equality is really in the name, right? Yes. That we all are equal. We all get the same thing. So right here, if we sat here and one of us is, for example, what's a good example if we sat here and we are all given the same things technically, yeah? We've all been given a folder that contains the same information in the same format. But if someone here was blind, what would we need? If we gave them that particular folder, it's not going to help them, yeah? If someone here is deaf, and I'm just going on and on here, it's not going to help them, right? How do we help that person who is not able to access this file that we have provided? Let's hear from the other group. So gender equity.
Yeah, we discussed and we realized that gender equity is fairness and justice in the treatment of both men and women. And this is in terms of resource sharing and opportunities. For instance, having access to education, jobs acquisition, and access to health services. It's just about the summary is fairness and justice in the treatment of both men and women.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so gender equity is fairness, yeah? But it's also that moving from the example of all of us get the same folder. If there was a person who is a woman and is also, or not even, even if we just leave out the being woman or man, but if we think about there's another person here who is deaf, what do we need for them to be able to access this equal opportunity that is in this room? Because we can say we just want to do training, right? We are all here, we came as leaders, we've all come in our own right from our organization. So we are the equality. But when we move to equity, is to say, yes, we all get the same equal footing. However, there's someone else who needs something different for them to be able to participate. And them needing something different doesn't take away from everyone else. So maybe that person who is blind, they will come with an assistant, yeah? Or we will go the extra mile to print this same material in Braille because they can read Braille. So then they can participate equally, yeah? They can access the same information. They don't need any other person interpreting it for them because I did not provide the equal opportunity for them to be able to participate. When we think about our own institutions and our programming, do we have any examples where we see the equality and equity playing out? Anyone? We all work with girls? Do we all work with girls? Yes. Yeah, okay. Any examples that come alive as we think about equality versus equity? Yes.
I think within the organization, you can have, within the organization, we might have considerations with hiring with regard to looking out for more balanced representation. If you know that you tend to have more applicants of a particular gender, yet you're looking for a diversity within your organization or a different team, then you're looking at that as a valid qualification or characteristic that's being considered for hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And imagine if I was the one doing if I was hiring in my friend's networking experience, she has a company that she's already realized is a disparity in terms of who submits the application. She sees less women submitting. The equality is all of us can go to school. Boys and girls can go to school. We start to think about equity when we say who gets to study what? And is it their choice? Is it that the most natural thing is for us to learn math and to be away those opportunities. And that's where equity comes in. So when we talk about gender equity, it's the fact that, for example, if a girl has enrolled in school at the same time as a boy, chances are and there's a lot of research to show this, that in many communities, girls end up doing the very, what is it called? The work at the household level, yeah? So they are cleaning, they are doing all sorts of work, so that when they come home from school, while the boys can go study, the girl has to clean dishes and to clean the baby, whatever, cooking, and I did this. I used to do a lot of that so that now when I go home, I don't clean dishes. And I was brought up by my grandmother, who is very old now. But when I'm in our house, I think it's such a trick of how many dishes I used to clean, so I no longer clean them. But imagine if now, and then that goes on and on, that we are not able to, boys and girls sometimes are not able to compete on the same level, even though the opportunity is there. It means that in our own programming, we have to look a layer deeper and say, if we are programming for young people, and we are seeing a lot more girls than boys, where are the boys? What are they doing? Why are they not coming to our programming? Because sometimes we think it's the mobilization that is wrong. But sometimes it is that there are other barriers, which we are about to hear now, that come into the situation and make it hard for people to actually participate as they would have if everything was leveled. Yeah? Do you want to share about some of the barriers you discussed?
So one thing that we looked at on this table was that because it's impossible to talk about gender and then you don't talk about sex. So usually we look at some of those things that hinder women from doing a number of things. We gave an example of a woman being the sales manager, and then she has to take a 3-month leave for maternity, and her seat is empty. So in most cases, a manager may decide to leave that role for a male, because a male is going to be constantly in office, because now this is business, they have to make profit. And if her seat is empty, what is going to happen? So yes, we have policies, but I think to some extent the implementation is loose. And that could be one of the barriers, or that could be one of the risks that affect especially the women.
No, just to add a little bit on that, I think also we discussed, it also affects the process of recruitment, because you find this organization looking at all this risk. A woman is being recruited in these positions, but what about if he's in period, and the period is very painful, that does not allow her to constantly stay there? That's one of the issues that probably it might show up in the recruitment process and making the decisions. So other position to be considered for a male, not for a female. So I think, like we discussed, there are a lot of things that plays around that. Their feelings, their thinking, based on the cultural context, but also social construct that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, thank you so much. And a lot of, yes, my sister?
To me, I want to share the equity within the workplace. Yeah, I think it can be done in a way that there should be that fair and unbiased distribution of opportunities, including resources and then the treatment within the workplace, regardless of the employee's background, the race, and then maybe the disability and the rest. Yeah.
Thank you so much. But that's, yes, that should be how it is, but it's not what we see, right? Like if we just take a quick sample here, how many of us in our organizations have people with any form of disability working with us? Yeah? Even in this room, the only person who has actually won, and nowadays, of course, the forms of disability are a bit more expansive, but the only person we can see is Joyce, right? How, if you think about her being able to access this hotel, what have they had to do that now makes it easier for her to be here? One of them is having that ramp. That ramp is a lot more expensive to put in place than stairs. Yeah? I say this because a friend of mine had a really bad accident and he got paralyzed and they had to put a ramp in their house. Yeah? So, when it comes to programming for girls and boys, men and women, some things takes a lot more expensive because there's the extra support. If we are hiring if someone is going to get pregnant and go on leave, we may have to hire someone to fill in for that. And in our budgeting and in our programming, if we don't take account of Purity is on leave, she's going to earn a full salary because she didn't do anything wrong. She had a baby. First of all, she's contributing to the government's economic whatever, right? So then, if I'm going to go on leave for 3 months, you hire someone who now ensures that the work moves as if I was there. Sometimes when we program for girls, it means we have to, apart from just giving them, saying we are going to provide transport, there are some you will have to provide accommodation, just based on how far they come from. And you know that they are at risk of sexual exploitation if they decide to go home at 7:30 when you finish your very expansive program, yeah? Have you scored all your goals for the donor and for your work to continue? Yes. But if you think the extra mile of what do these girls truly need? I think earlier in the morning, one sister was sharing about the return to school policy in Tanzania. How, when you start to do it, you realize, there are many other things we'd not considered. And you realize it's actually more expensive to program for that girl who is out of school, who needs a nanny, who needs food for the baby, they need food for themselves. They maybe even have been kicked out of home. Like I was doing some research on young mothers and adolescent moms a few years ago, and in Kibra, I realized some of them were telling me, if 3 of us here have gotten pregnant and we've been kicked out by our parents, we come together and rent a house. And so we bring up to our children, we bring them up communally. That means today is your day to go to work. The 2 of you go to work, I stay and take care of the children. Tomorrow, so they take turns, yeah? Which means, of course, if I'm telling those girls, oh, here's an opportunity for you to go back to school, which of the 3 of us is going to go? You see? But if I have already programmed and said there are 3 girls who are already living together, they pay rent, they need to eat. School is maybe, one was in class 7, the other one was in form 2, the other one, how do I program for the long term and taking care of all the needs of this? They are all young moms, but their needs are so unique based on the context that you are programming in. So when we talk about gender equity, gender equality, is to say, yes, everyone gets the same opportunity. However, sometimes we will need to give someone else something that feels like it's a bit more because we want them to fully participate in our programming. I'm sure we've... Yes, I was about to actually, you can see, I was about actually to ask us to stand. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So, as we stand, let's all stand. I was going to offer, we've all seen that example of people, of gender equality and equity, of people in a field, yeah, watching football from across the fence, yeah? And some of everyone, they're different heights. There are people like me, the others who are shorter, the others who are taller. And if we all get the same level of stool, we still have someone we are standing on the same opportunity, but we are not able to see the football field. However, if I stand with my sister, she doesn't need as long a stool as I would need, yeah? Maybe she doesn't even need a stool, and it is okay. So even in our own programming, when we think about the work that we do, who needs what? Who needs a bit more just because of their circumstances? All right, so let's move around kidogo. Let's walk around and find a new partner to talk to. Sorry. If you hear the bell, you focus on me. I'm the one with the mic then. Yes, thank you. Let's watch a quick video that just brings home this conversation on gender equality and equity. It's 1 minute and a half, so we can still stand. Don't go to sit, don't sit. So this example is from an organization that works on sports. So you will see that a lot of it is really focused on sports, but you can think about your organization when you think about the key terminologies that we've already been talking about. So hopefully we have something to continue chewing on when we think about everyone gets a helmet, yeah? Some of them have more hair than others, some their heads are smaller. Are we giving the same helmet, or do we consider maybe that's one? You know, people need different things at any given time. And if we are curious in our work, then we can have a lot more, we can have better programming, because we are not just doing stuff from things that we know or from our own perspectives, yeah? We are asking, we are consulting, we are including more voices. Okay, so in your new, I want to divide the group into two, so let's go this way, up to here. You go this way, you come this way. I want you to discuss quickly on gender responsive programming. What is gender responsive programming? We already, I think, have a lot of the answers there, right? And then, yeah? Not yet. And here, I mean from the video and the conversation we're having so far. And then I want you to discuss, what do you understand by gender dynamics? 2 minutes, then we come together. So, gender responsive programming, what is gender dynamics? Yeah. 2 minutes, then we can continue. Let's hear, what have we discussed? Gender. So you're ready, please.
We can supplement.
This group was ready,
Yes.
One meeting.
Okay. So gender responsive programming, we have defined it as programming that takes into considerations the gender issues and the examples we have talked about there. It takes into consideration equality, equity, the risks involved, and breaking barriers. Then my friend here has an example.
We do implement an innovative program on gender responsive called the Linear Learning Initiative on Norm Exploitation and Abuse. We are using radio drama to address the shift in social norm that are triggering or fueling the transactional sex between adolescent girls and older men at the community. But the radio drama can be listened by everyone, the family level, and then followed by a reflection session that involve everyone at the family as well as in the community. So everyone in the community is sort of involved into the program.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Any other of us from here? All right. Come to you.
Gender to the gender dynamics, we as a group, we discuss and we notice that gender dynamics is the disparity in the understanding of the society, in the perspective of the roles assigned to both men and women. And it's dynamic in the sense that what a particular community or society A may consider as a role of a woman may not be the same with another society. So that was a perspective upon which we looked at the dynamics in gender.
There was a second area where it was, when we consider the gender, there are really areas where they are, we should know we cannot be the same. For example, the women will always give birth, and the men don't. So we have that, should always have that in mind, that yes, there are other areas of opportunities and so on, but some of those areas, so we should be at least aware of that.
And because of that, then men and women are treated in certain ways, yeah? So all the conversations we are having link back to the definition of gender, which is around norms, around socially constructed stuff that happens or influences us. And because in this particular programming my brother is talking about, if I'm sitting there with my father and my son, one of us is going to be like not getting the message, yeah? If it's not packaged well, if it's not responsive, one of us is going to be feeling like, this is too much, eh? I can't take in this. However, because the program is already packaged for a larger audience, it makes it easier for anyone to catch that message and pick what they can from that particular message. So when we talk about the gender responsive programming, it takes into account all of these things we talked about, the norms. What's keeping girls from school, for example? What's keeping boys from actually completing school? Because we know, especially I think maybe in East Africa, with the rise of the boda culture, more boys drop out of school, right? And actually some research was showing that majority of the teen moms, the fathers are boda riders, but they're also boys. They're like 16, 17, I was having a boyfriend, I got pregnant. He continues to boda and impregnate other girls. And this girl is relegated to being a mom, yeah? So when we think about those norms, what can we do for this conversation, for example, around sexual rights and reproductive health? How can we reach these two groups? Because obviously they are involved, right? Obviously, the programming in some cases can't just be tailored to one audience, and it's girls who get pregnant, so it's their responsibility to stay out of that is asking questions. Asking and then involving them in your design so that your program is more responsive. Even as we program for women, and we've had a lot of this previously, especially with the income generating activities, yeah? That when women start to bring an income, violence increases at the home. Why? Because this woman every day now was going to the website to say, tunahitaji, we need cooking oil. And suddenly, there's even extra cooking oil in the kitchen. And the man will think, where are you getting this money? Or the man will come and take out all of this money and go and drink, go get another wife, like all sorts of things happen, right? But if we figured what is it that we need to do about our own social norms that already impact these women and these men in certain ways, that even though we are doing very good work, there's somewhere it doesn't always, the cycle is not completed because it breaks somewhere. If a woman is being beaten, is she going to show up for the business that she opened? If this man is drinking and marrying another wife, we still perpetuate the same cycle that we were already trying to stop. So we can think about our organizations. What questions do we need to be asking about the work that we do? About our own leadership. What are we doing? Who are we not listening to? Earlier on, the speaker, Lindy, was talking about stakeholder mapping. Who else do you need to map so that you can have them on the table and you're constantly thinking about how do I ensure that if I'm programming for X, there's a greater potential for success because I've looked at all these other things that would impact my work. All right? Okay, so I want us to do so. Yes. Actually, you can't sit for 2 seconds because you're about to do an exercise. We're about to do an exercise. So, gender responsive programming is everything we have said. It's where gender norms, roles, and inequalities have been considered. And you've taken measures to address that, yeah? You go beyond, we raised awareness about teenage pregnancies, for example, and figure out why are girls truly getting pregnant and what can you do around that so that you can actually program well for the girls. And then gender dynamics is really how we interact between men and women. There are things that we already know, as the group rightly said. There are things men do. It is assumed men do those things. And because men do those things, it feels like it's only them who can do. For one good example in our own organizations or a lot of the NGO space, you find most of the accountants are who? Men. They are men, right? Why is that so? Numbers, yeah? Because it's assumed boys are good in math, right? This thing starts very early, right? This thing starts very early. Boys are good in math. So they go study the accounting, the engineering, whatnot. This is the same thing affecting my friend who is networking. And networking came the other day, right? We had internet and computers not too long ago. But you can see that chain has continued, yeah? There are many of us here who you didn't consider taking anything that was, if you are a woman, you didn't consider taking anything math heavy because you've already had so much. How? That's not your thing, right? I went to do an MBA a few years ago, and halfway, I don't know why I thought, I didn't think this MBA would have math, yeah? And it's not that I was really bad at math, but I found it so stressful. I'm like, my God, I'm going to fail this thing, and it's because of this math, because half the time, this statistics is stretching me. I did pass. I graduated. However, you see, that thing, I think I came with it from a very long time ago. And if I had thought through what I wanted to do, chances I would have already cancelled myself, saying MBA has a lot of math, I'm not going to do that. You see, there are things that already happen to us, even as we work. You want to change roles from maybe, a program person, you now want to be in charge of, let's say you want to become the executive director, whether of this organization or another one. One of the things you must do is understand numbers, right? You must know how to read the balance sheet. If you don't know that, every interview you go for and they ask you, how do you budget? You start to grapple, right? You start saying, hey, yeah, hey, hey. You won't get that particular role, yeah? However, there's someone else who will not be asked that question because it's already assumed that they already know that. These things happen even in our own institutions and in our own experiences when we think about it, yeah? All right, so we are going to continue and have a conversation on power analysis. And I want us to do an exercise. So I'll ask us to stand, and then I'll give you the instructions of our exercise, and we shall move along. Where are my notes? Oh, here. Eh? You discussed your organizations mpaka there's no more nini left, eh? No juice, eh? Tuko pamoja? Haya. So, let's all come here in the middle, please. Okay. So, we are going to have a conversation on power. And we are going to just have an exercise around it. We are going to play around, and hopefully by the end of it, we will have picked a few things about power by the end of this particular session. So, in this exercise, we are all becoming members or citizens of a new planet. Okay? We are not Tanzanians, we are not Kenyans or Ugandans, we are now members of a new planet. And in this planet, we only do one thing. And that one thing is, we walk around and greet each other. So if I greet you this time, when you hear my bell, this is how we know we are working hard. We move to another person and you greet them. And as you greet them, you could tell them stuff about yourself. You could tell them anything. Like there's no rule. The rule is we are just greeting each other. Yeah? That's all we do. Yeah? And so, the other thing we do is we listen. We listen to each other, and we seriously follow the laws of the land. We seriously follow the laws. So, we will walk around and introduce ourselves by name, one by one. Just move around, introducing yourself, and when you hear my bell, you stop. And when you stop, I will give you further instructions. Each of us, as a member or a citizen of this country, will now move around and start greeting each other. Let's move. Yeah. We are greeting each other as members of this new planet. So, in this new planet where we live, all we do is what? We just greet each other. But also, on this new planet, there are special laws, and the people of this planet do whatever the law says. I will now read the laws of this particular planet. Law number 1. You're friendly. You're very friendly people. You're always eager to meet someone new. You're always ready to tell them something about yourselves. And because of that, you also have four things. There are 4 rights. You have 4 rights that each of you as a citizen has. Sorry, forgive my bell. I have to manage it. Hiya. So, the first right that you have as a citizen of this new planet, you have a right to hire for your department. So the other thing in this planet, you're all leaders. You're all leaders of organizations. So you can hire for your own department. No one can come and tell you, Purity is my cousin. She just finished university. Hire her. That does not happen on this planet. You have a right. All of you have equal rights. The second right you have is a right to respect from others. So you all respect each other. If I say, give me your badge, you will give me because you respect me, yeah? Or if I'm taking something from you, you will give me because we have respect for one another. We treat each other, and having that respect means you're protected from people treating you unkindly or discriminating you. Higher, the third right that we have is the right to have opportunities to make your own decisions. So you can decide to do whatever because you have a right, you have the opportunities, you have the right to make your own decisions. And lastly, we each have a right to control our own budgets. So each of you has a budget which you can control. That is your right. All right, citizens of the new planet? I will now invite you here to pick up your rights. Each of you pick 4 rights. There are 4 bunches here of what right you should have. And then once you've picked your 4 rights, you go back to greeting each other. That's all you do in this planet. Yes? Haya, kila mtu take up some rights. Everyone has 4 rights. Everyone has 4 rights. Once everyone has picked their rights, we go back to greeting each other. So maybe I'll give you some cues to continue greeting each other. You can discuss what you're planning for your budget. These are just loose questions to help you greet one another. Yeah? What are you thinking about in your budgeting this year? Haya, let's continue. I'm not hearing people greeting each other. Very good. Control. All right, everyone has 4 rights. Please continue greeting each other. And when you hear my bell, you move to greet another person. Yeah, you can, if you have already moved, find another person. That's all we do. This is the work of greeting one another. Eh? No, anything. We're just talking. We're just having conversations. I was just giving you an example for the conversations. Anything you want to talk about or to tell your neighbor, please feel free. All right, move, greet a new person. Tell them about your life. Tell them, how are you finding the weather in Kenya? Okay, focus on me. Attention, citizens of our new planet. The whole population of our planet will now be divided in two parts. Half of you will be squares, and the other half will be circles. So let's divide into two groups. Yeah, I want to divide first. Earlier on, I think I had a lot of confusion. No, not a lot, just a little. Are we equal numbers? How many are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. I think we need one person here. So we are 9, right? 1, 2, eh? That doesn't matter in this planet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we are 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's fine. So, any of us, yeah? So we're in two groups. One of us, one group is now a square. The other one is a circle. So please come and pick. Yeah, you just distribute to the circles and distribute to the squares. This is your life card. Okay? Your life, your being alive flows from this particular card that you're holding in this particular planet. Okay? You must have a life card to survive on this new planet. Please, so you've all taken the card. So let's move around and continue greeting one another. You already know you are either a square, yeah? Everywhere. We are all greeting. Remember, we are one planet. So we greet, and our main work. Please remember, you are good citizens. You follow the laws of the land. So the law says all we do is greet one another. Go to work. Yeah? Yeah? You can join any group. It doesn't have to be 2 people. You can be more than 2. Some people are not working. Remember, the main work here is to greet one another. Yes. So go to work. You can't have 2. Oh. You can either be a circle or a square. You can't be both, eh? That's your life card. Citizens of the new planet, things have changed. We now officially declare that circles have more power than the squares. If I remember, you don't ask any questions, you're good citizens. If I ring the bell, while a circle is greeting a square, the circle can take one of the square's rights. Any of the 4 rights you can take. Okay? As a circle, you can take. If the square has no more rights, the circle can take the square's life card. If a square loses his or her life card, he or she must stand frozen in place for the rest of the game. Even though squares know of this risk, that if all your rights have been taken away and your life card has been taken away, even if they know of this risk, they must continue greeting circles. Yeah? please continue greeting each other. Can, and actually you should. Remember, you're powerful. So it's all up to you. Yeah, but circles can. These are the rules of the land. Yeah. Yeah? Yeah, things have changed very drastically. Yeah. Remember, we are good, we follow the laws of the land, so you can't refuse to greet a circle. You can't, she can't refuse to greet you. And she can't refuse to give you her rights. So, if you hear my bell and a circle is speaking to a square, the circle can what? Pick a right from the square. If you hear my bell and we were speaking, you were speaking, you can pick a right from her. All right? Any. Yes. Let's continue. Yeah, we continue talking. The main thing is we greet each other until you hear, you have to hear my bell. You have to hear my bell for you to pick the rights. Okay? But you must also continue greeting others. If you hear the bell and a square is speaking to a circle, the circle can pick a right. However, the squares must continue greeting the circles. Remember, we follow the rules of the land. You have to continue.
My life has been taken, don't I
You freeze.
Yeah.
If your life has been taken, remember, the life card is the last card you give out because do you want to die? So if people have been coming for your rights, you give everything until the last thing you're remaining with is your you're remaining with a square. So that's the last right to be taken from you. When that is taken, you stand frozen in time. So who's frozen at the moment? We have one. Okay, let's continue greeting each other. This guy. Have you already taken the right? All right. Oh, if he's frozen, then he has nothing. You take it. Yeah. Who else is frozen? So, higher. One last round of greeting each other. Let's move. You must greet each other. Circles, you can't take any life from each other. You remember, you're the powerful ones. Circles, you are the powerful ones. All right? Let's all now come together. How many people are frozen? They're frozen, quite a big chunk of the room. Remember, one meeting, remember, if you're frozen, you're not working, right? Because our main work in this planet is to move around and greet each other. So if everything, all the rights you had have been taken away, you're just frozen, which means you are an unproductive member of this society. Eh? Okay? Anyway, let's do a bit of reflection on what we have gone through. Any takes on what has just happened? Yeah. Yes. One meeting.
One reflection is that we. Okay. Yeah. One reflection that I can share is that we, in this world, we have equal rights, but the rights of others are always taken on a different account. It could be ignorance, it could be some other aspect, but a situation where the rights has been taken. Then two is that we all have the rights to live, but there are situations where some people are subjected to conditions that they are not even able to live, if they are to live, but to live a uncomfortable life. But in this particular case, to make a clear reflection, is that some people are not even now able to live. I think that is the summary.
Thank you. I have also learned that the high authorities or the influencers, maybe the decisions they make do not favor the citizens of such a certain planet, because your bell was like a authority or a law passed, and we had no options but to follow them. So those high authorities exist. I don't know how we can be helped.
Yes, right? And as we think about high authorities, we also come to think about the reason we are here. What brought us here is our own institutions, yeah? So this situation is not removed from the things that happen around us, yeah?
Yes, thank you. From what I discovered, we were all given equal rights, but there was one group that was granted more power, so it took away the rights from others. Yeah, and I could sense some inferiority from the ones that were taken out from there.
Yes, thank you for that. And in our own organizations, what are some of the things that give some people more power than others? Position. Position, is that it?
Privileges.
Privilege such as? Such as? You are? Allowances, eh? If someone is always going for field trips, eh? You know, they build a bigger house than the director, eh? So in some cases, yes, thank you for that, yes.
Yeah, I think also the background of individuals also influence, because in an organization you might find an employee coming from a powerful background of the family.
Yeah.
So because the organization wants favor from that positions, they tend to influence, they tend to favor some individuals aligning to that.
Absolutely. And another one is how long you've been in an institution, yes?
Also, ignorance or a lack of knowledge about something
Say more.
might lead you not to understand, you not knowing that you're equal with the other person.
Yeah, so not knowing you.
Having the conviction that we are both equal.
Yeah.
In other organization, if it's not clear, might lead to others, might lead to this gender or inequality.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Absolutely. I don't know if you've seen this in your organizations or other spaces where people who went to a particular school, you know, I don't know if you have, here in Kenya it's a very alive joke of a group of schools and primary school. Yeah, if you went to government schools, you went to primary school, right? If you went to prestigious schools, you went to group of schools. And those people sound a certain way. And when there are a couple of them in your organization, not even schools, you find that there can be cliques that are either based on class, ethnicity, where we live, right? And those are forms of power that display in our organization. Someone wanted to say something? Yes, and then?
I just wanted to give my reflection as well. You realize that when we just started the exercise, everybody had rights, everybody had her life. Yeah. But then as you kept on giving instructions, our rights were taken away. Yeah. And that to me means that sometimes or most times it is the systems that are set in place that suck other people dry. Yeah. Because initially at birth, all of us are entitled to enjoy every right in this world. Yeah. But it is the systems that we come and find on earth that hinder other people from enjoying the rights that they're supposed to.
Thank you so much. And when we take your example of the earth and see that as our institutions, what are some of the things that suck life out of others in our organizations? Or maybe those other people who are not here, right? Our organizations are fine, right? We don't have any issues. So what are some of the things that suck life out of people? Because we even have those policies that say this is an equal rights organization, equal opportunity, we don't discriminate, and yet we find some of those things happening in our own institutions, right? Or at least we've been somewhere where that was happening. I used to work with some people, and the discrimination or just the inequality was around race. As Africans, sometimes, we all put in applications, right? For various things. But you find that sometimes you just don't get that opportunity because you just didn't sound right. Or they say they didn't understand your process. Recently, I was part of a process of awarding some grants to organizations across the world. And by the end of that scoring process, we had maybe 2 organizations on the African continent. And it boiled down that people felt they didn't understand who these people are. They didn't understand their work. They didn't see it in the larger space, yeah? And that happens to us as individuals and as organizations. Any other things that we feel, yes?
Well, maybe just one thing that I observed while we were playing the game. So in the end, the people who had more power, in this case, the people with the circle life, I had one, and I realized I didn't greet another circle person. I was looking out for where the square is, right? Yeah. But also, I don't remember what the rules of the game were. If you had said that we can take a right or must, because maybe there was an option of just choosing not to, or even finding that this person did not have their rights and you had all of these others and giving them part of your own.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, the circle can take one of the squares for rights. Yeah, so it's a delicate balance, yeah? Also, when you have power, that's a really good analysis of sometimes when you have the opportunity and the power to do something, do you actually do it? But remember, the underlying factor of that can also is that we are such good citizens of this planet, so we follow the rules. So if the rule says let's move around, then people will take the power. But that's true. We didn't greet each other because it's as if we were the same, yeah? We had nothing to offer. And do we see that playing out in our ecosystem, in our organization, where I have nothing to say to you, yeah? But I have a whole lot to say to them because I feel like we identify, yeah? Yeah, our differences. Do you want to say more? Do you want to speak about our differences?
Yeah, sometimes there are power differences that play in organizations where there is a set of management or leadership team. Yeah. Then we have the subordinates. Yeah. So the subordinates will not take an issue to a fellow subordinate, but they would rather take to a supervisor in the line of their departments. Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe the supervisor has been traveling the last, say, 1 month. They are here in Kenya in this training, and then after this they go to New York, right? And when they go to New York, they'll do work for 1 week, and maybe they have a relative in Boston, so they go visit and experience snow. So by the time this person comes back to the office, what has happened to that issue of the people at the bottom who don't have a system, who the only way their issues can be heard is if they came to the top, yeah? So when we think about our own institutions, what power do we hold, and how does that play out in terms of efficiency for the work that we are doing, people feeling connected and having channels of conversations with one another, and also being able to know, here is an issue that I can go to a fellow pink, a fellow circle, and we can address it, yeah? Because maybe this circle person has many, even too many rights that they could share, right? There are so many things to unpack there when we think about our own institutions, our own leadership journey. So, how did you feel when you were divided into circles and squares? Any offers? How did it feel? Because one moment we were all equal. We all had equal rights, yeah? Then I said, now we are going to become circles and squares. How did that feel? Sorry? Discrimination. In what way? I didn't say, I just said you are a circle and you are a square.
Yeah. Okay, before the power, I mean the rule change, you were contented first. You received what you were given. But when now the rule changed that cycles have power more than squares, then we started trembling. That's the low self-esteem. And worried, like, I had my colleague, he came to me, I'm a circle, give me your rights. So even them, their attitude changed when they told them they have more rights than us. So those are things that keep happening.
Absolutely. You wanted to add?
There was not that equal treatment because the other side were having much power to the square, to the extent that they can grab all that you have, and then you just remain without anything, of which at the end, it can destroy.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other offers? Thank you so much.
I'm here.
Yes, my sister. Oh, where? Oh, there? Then I come to my sister here.
For me, just at the mention of your circle, your square, for me, you had already started labeling. Because in the beginning, all of us were equal. We were all in the same planet, doing the same thing, living so normally, and life was very peaceful. But the moment you divided us, you had already started labeling, and that's when later you came up with other futures to impose on the circles, to impose on the squares. Yeah,
absolutely. So one small thing can change the dynamics, yeah? Because all I said is you are square and you are a circle, but then there's a curiosity of what does this mean? What's lying ahead as we think about this? And we have, you know, in our organization, sometimes when we communicate to the staff, maybe you come from a board meeting and you're saying, oh, there's going to be changes around here. Yeah? Then you leave it there, leaving for people that I'll send email or I'll follow up. But the amount of chaos you cause, right? Just by saying there's going to be changes, because people start to speculate. What changes? I used to have some team members, one of them would go around telling people, you know, you're going to be fired next, eh? You know, you're going to be fired next. And hey, running organizations is such a, yes, my sister.
Yes. Also myself, I found the shapes of those squares and the circle one. For the square was very nice, but for the circle, the carrot, it was very nice, but how the shape was being shaped, it was not very good. It shows some, everyone, it has got nice color, but I don't think the way it was being prepared. So there's
it's my bad indirect skills.
Discriminations. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Say that last sentence again, the discrimination.
Discrimination.
Yeah.
You pay more attention on taking for the square, but for the circle, you did lovely.
Next time I'll cut them right. Thank you, my sister. But I hear your point that sometimes it looks like we are paying more attention, for example, to the finance, right? The executive director spends a lot of time with the finance department because this is our lifeline, yeah? And then the rest of the people, even to have like a meeting, the director is always just, I used to work in an organization where our ED, at least once a week, they would revise the budget. So you woke up on Monday knowing you have $3,000 for an activity. By Friday, she's like, oh, no, we cut that, it's 1,000. I'm like, and you didn't bother to tell me? I went and planned on my 3,000, yeah? Small things like those end up causing a lot of tensions in the organization. Yes, my sister?
Yeah, I wanted to add what she has said about the shape and the roughness. So from the square, you may find that their lifeguard is much bigger than the cycle. Yeah, of which it represents like either unbiased or biasness from the other side.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Like sometimes also, even our own institutions, there are some institutions that have closed down between COVID and now that looked like they would never, right? And we never stopped to investigate how are their rights being taken away, so that who thought USAID would have closed? And here we are now, right? Reeling from that. And it's impacting so many of our work, even when it didn't look like we had any direct work with them. Maybe some of your partners who you worked with them directly have been impacted, and suddenly your scope of work has grown, something that we didn't actually see could happen, could ever have happened, and now it's here. And that happens even in our own programming, that there are things we don't take into account, but then when they happen, the impact is so great.
And then what I observed from our colleagues who had circles is that I think everybody enjoys power so much.
Yeah.
And by the time we have power in our hands, we forget about other people.
Yeah.
That we are supposed to work for. And then in most cases, we use it the wrong way. The example that she gave, now I have power, give me your rights.
Yeah.
That was bad.
Yeah. And when we think about ourselves as managers, as leaders of organizations, are there ways that we sometimes actually say that, yeah? You say, okay, we are going to do X. Because you used to program, maybe you are the program manager before you are promoted, so you're constantly bulldozing those people and telling them, this is how I used to do it, this is how we are doing it. Eh? In fact, I used to say, I know this work. You're not telling me anything new, right? And it's such a subtle way of mistrust that we don't realize that we are actually not allowing other people to thrive in the space that we have created for them. And as leaders, one of the biggest reasons we are here is to actually interrogate some of those things. What you just said, that we all love power. Recently, I read a quote that we all love power until we have to give it away. And then suddenly you're like, those people, do they even speak English? Those people, we have all these things. Did they even found this organization? How would they know? I'm so passionate about it, I can't. It must be me who meets with the donors, yeah? It must be me who does X, Y, Z. And that really keeps our teams even stunted, so that anytime there's a crisis, if you fall sick as a director, what happens to the institution? And that is something you could have managed if you managed your own power. Because we have power, and we can't deny that that power avails us some certain things. But how do we handle that power so that it's serving us and it's serving the institutions that we are running? All right, so one last question. Circles, let's hear from the circles. What was it like to have the most power? Circles. Yes.
I think this is what happens in the society. When you have more power, you enjoy denying the other one more his rights, and for you, you are happy. Without any due consideration that supposing it had been me. Because you move from one person denying that one power, I mean his rights, then you move to another one. And you are looking for who you deny more. That kind of thing. So you become greedy as you go on and on. You want to accumulate more and more. You really become so selfish.
Yeah, absolutely. And we become selfish because that power is availing us a few things that keep us, different, looking different from the masses, yeah? Or the people that we serve. I used to lead an organization which one time we were going for a staff retreat, and our policy said that if you had a child under 2 years, you could come with your child, and you could also come with a minder, someone to take care of your child. It could be your nanny, it could be anyone. You could bring someone to take care of your child. And I had this one staff member whose child was 5 years, but I also had another colleague whose child was 2, and then the other one I think was 4. So this colleague with the 5-year-old spoke to the colleague with the 2 children, under 2 and 4, and said, if I bring my daughter, can your nanny take care of these 3 children? So the communication I get is, I'm going to bring my daughter to the retreat because I've already spoken to so-and-so, they're going to take care of my child. And I decide, first of all, why? Why are you bringing your child? They are 5. You already know the policy. So I went to meddle into that situation without understanding the conversation that had happened here. And that thing had such a terrible ripple effect. So there were other things going on in the organization, but I didn't even realize how I misused my power by saying, oh, you can't bring your child, because my thinking was, as your child is not used to that nanny. So when you come, by the time they are norming, you're going to be disturbing all of us and walking out of our meeting because you brought your child. Is that my business? As a director, is that really my business? But I curtailed that whole situation because I thought about it from my own lens. Later on, it was that I suddenly had a board meeting, and my board was telling me how I have been mistreating people in the organization, how I don't trust people. And part of it was, we used to get lunch in the office, and people would be like, I'm not going to eat rice and beans. So I was like, okay, then we won't have lunch. See, you bring what you want to eat. Hey, that became a big problem. Like, I'm now denying people, and we had interns. So the interns, in fact, they would carry the food and they would go and throw it. So me, I'm thinking that my mitigation is to say no more lunches. So it was said how I'm discriminating these girls, how I'm discriminating the staff, how I don't trust the staff because I keep asking them. We used to use Ubers, and my credit card was the one that would be charged, and then the organization would pay at the end of the month. So every time I had an alert, I would post on the WhatsApp group, is there anyone taking an Uber? And the team interpreted that as I didn't trust them. I thought they were taking the Uber for their own, for other things outside the office. I was asking because the credit card is in my name. If I'm seeing stuff being whatever in the night, I'm like, it could be hacked. Maybe we got hacked. So I'm asking from a safety perspective. However, my people are reading it from their own perspective. Yeah, and that I'm trying to control them. Yeah, I'm trying to control them. I don't trust them. Please note, I already did this other thing of saying you can't bring your daughter. Hey, let me tell you. I was sitting there with my board. I think it was even my appraisal. I'd been executive director for 1 year. And the things coming from the board, I'm like, the way I've been working my ass off, forgive the language, I have been working so hard. And you're telling me, these are the issues you choose to focus on, not the fact that I raised all this money. I made this organization, You know, are we not those people? Don't we find ourselves in situations such as this, where you feel you're working so hard, whether as a director, as a program manager, but people focus on the negatives. And how to move from that is, if you work on yourself, then you know. If you're going to ask people about an Uber, ask them during the day, right? I meet with them all the time on the corridors of the office. I could ask then. I could wait for the staff meeting at the end of the week. Like, there are so many things I could have done differently. If this colleague wants to bring her daughter, it's none of my business. Is she asking me to take care of this child? It's none of my business. But she felt I discriminated her. And also there's a type of a person, granted that we are not all the same, there are people who really look for trouble. So she was such a troublemaker, and we have those people. And sometimes we feed that mechanism because as soon as you realize Purity is rubbing me the wrong way, now you make it your point to teach me a lesson, right? And as you're teaching this person a lesson, they have their own following because the other people, they're like spectators. They can see what's happening, and you keep wondering why you're working so hard as a leader. And some of these things are not changing. So part of the reason we are here in these 3 days and the work that we've already done previously in the lead up to this and the work that we will do in the next couple of months is definitely to help us work on ourselves. The more you know yourself, the more you know what triggers you. I know now we all have done at the Enneagram, and there are things sometimes you're like, me, I'm not that person, eh? I'm not that. That is not me. But chances are, it is actually, there are a couple of things there that are true. Or if in your evaluation, assessment or appraisals at the office, you keep hearing the same thing. Purity doesn't, I think people used to say I didn't care about people's feelings. I was only concerned about work. I'm like, yeah, that's why we are here. Are we not here to work? and of course it would get me into, so it would just cause me heartache because me, I'm like, all I want to do is do this work and I want to do good. Why are people complaining? And I realized that if I'm coming to give you feedback, I'm happy for someone to tell me, by the way, that work you did was not good. I will work on it because I also I'm a certain type. I like to impress myself. I like to impress people. Right? So I'll do it. But other people, they are like, now they'll go and sleep for 2 days. Just because I used 3 words to say their work is not good. Yeah? If I learn myself, I can then deliver. Right? And one size doesn't fit all. I can come and be very direct with you. But with you, I will come and even maybe use even though I'm your manager, I'll use your friend because I know if that person, I know you're already discussing the boss. You already know people talk about you. So you have to figure out how do you lead to prevent those little foxes, right? These little things that happen within our institutions that make it so difficult for us to lead. All we want to do is do the work and lead. But there are a lot of things that keep coming and interrupting the good work that we have done. And that's how you find leaders. Sometimes we have so much burnout because you're not just carrying the fact that you need to make payroll. Yeah? You're also carrying what people are saying about you. You're also carrying who is it that feels like you don't support them, you don't have time for them. You see? And the more we know ourselves, we know how to manage ourselves and manage the organization. And some of the tools we already have because we have already been in this work. The other tools we'll acquire by speaking with each other, by being part of this program, because this program is really just about building us from within so that what we put out there matches or at least meets us halfway in the work that we are trying to do on ourselves. So, just to open the space for any last offers on power, what are our thoughts about power, just based even on the exercise that we had as we come to the end, closer to the end of our time together.
That power is good, but when we use it, a summary that power is good, but how we use it determines the negative outcomes on the people we lead. So if we use power at our disposal positively, we will cause even positive change. But when we use it negatively, the outcome is also negative. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Any other offers? So power, as we know, is a capacity, right, of you as an individual, us as a group, or any social structure to direct, influence, or control behaviors, thoughts, and feelings of others. When we think about ourselves in the roles that we already occupy, we can see how we try to control others. whether it's how they feel, right? What they do, like me telling this, my colleague, they can't bring their child just because I could, right? There are things we do because we can. There are others we do because they have to be done. So you have to also accept that you have a certain level of power that you have to exercise. And sometimes you won't be the most popular person in the room, and it's okay. Yeah? In leadership, you have to make peace with certain things, that you're not the most popular person in the room, and it's okay. And then it's who gets what? Who gets more rights? It's the ones who've been declared. How do you declare people in your organization? It's the things that you do. It's, for example, when you decide to tie salary increases to performance, but then you don't even have an appraisal system. So people, it feels like people get their salary increment haphazardly, or if the boss likes them, then they get a salary increment. Sometimes that's the thing, that if we don't structure it, it feels like we have not thought about it. Who decides what? Is it the boss? Does everything have to wait for you to return for the 1 month travel you've been on? Or you've been sick? People have to come to your house to sign, for you to sign while you're in hospital because you are the only signatory, yeah? Or there are only 2 of them. Or the accountants, if they get pregnant or they are whatever, something is happening to them, nothing moves within the organization. Yeah? Who does what? The accountant sticking with it. Are they the only people who know that particular work? Who sets the agenda? The agenda sometimes is set by people who are not in leadership, right? I don't know if you've heard, like in government offices, how powerful the people of procurement are. Either procurement or the clerks. They're the ones who decide which document moves up the chain, yeah? And in your office, you may have some of those people. You may even be the person who decides, unless I've set the agenda, is not going to happen in this particular organization. And lastly, forms of power. We have the very visible one, where everyone knows that's the executive director. You can tell by their office. I used to have a coach one time who told me, you know, what you need is to show these people you are the boss. So you need to get a big red chair and then have a corner office and dress a certain way. He was telling me to now go and get suits and start wearing that. I'm like, first of all, I don't even like wearing suits. And now suddenly with my small self, I also needed a big red chair. Yeah? The irony of it is when I overcame myself, my chair, since this COVID situation and decided working from home, my chair is red. But it's because I like red. I like dots of red. But every time, this is maybe 10, 15 years ago when you were telling me this, and I was like, I really don't think this leadership thing is for me, because now I have to like change myself to fit a particular role. There are things that are constantly demanding that we change so that we can visibly appear powerful. Interrogate yourself and ask yourself, what are these things that I feel that I must really show up for people. When I enter the room, everyone knows the fearless leader has walked in. And sometimes you don't need them, right? The fearless one, yeah. Like when the police come here, in fact, in this country, none of us feel safe, We just start to say, what have we done? I need to find an exit. And yeah, so that's a form of power. And sometimes you enter the office as the executive director and people scatter, right? They were speaking, suddenly they're silent. Ask yourself, what do you need to interrogate around that? And then the hidden and informal power. I think this is sometimes really damaging, and it can also be really powerful when used right. As an executive director, I was thinking about how do you share your power? Or as a manager, you can be that you let people make decisions, and you don't have to be the one who has the last word in everything. You're the one who is saying. But you can also do the homework to see in your organization. When you say, we are showing up at 8:30, and people come at 9, and they all look quite relaxed. Or you find they showed up at 8. You need to ask yourself, who's sitting there? Who are they listening to? Because obviously it's not you, right? And we all have those situations. I used to have a colleague who, every time I said something, she's like, but we work so hard. And let me tell you, that statement would carry the day. People would be like, yeah, why are you demanding? Why are you saying we should fill a template or do X, Y, Z? Now, I'm thinking about the M&D of the organization. So I'm like, if you go to the field, here, fill this template, so that even before you come back, we already have the data of where you went. And my colleague would be like, oh, but we work so... She just say it very casually in our staff meeting. But we work so hard. Needless to say, no one filled the templates, until I discovered where the issue was. So do your homework as a leader. The power that you're trying to share, do you share it with the right people, or do you share it also with people who are trying to sabotage you in ways that some of them are not even very intentional? It's just that sometimes, like for me, I found that because this colleague was older than me, she felt that she felt like she should have taken the position that I had. So we had a lot of friction. So when you have friction with someone, interrogate, because some of it is you, and some of it is the system that's enabling it, yeah? Yeah, and then lastly, the invisible power. I think a lot of this also lies with maybe the very quiet people, or the people that we program for. Sometimes we don't go and ask them, what do you need? How do you need it? We decide that we know. But if those people decide, you've called, you've done all this work to organize. Imagine if Joyce did all this work of organizing this training and you didn't show up. Yeah? None of you showed up, or 5 people showed up. That is power. And you didn't show up because you all met and decided, actually, there are 3-4 things we don't like about this situation, so we won't show up. Right? Sometimes that happens with the communities that we work in. They decide, like here in Kenya, it happens a lot with the politicians. When you come to a meeting and suddenly you can't even speak because there are people heckling. I guess we have a bit of freedom of speech, yeah? That heckling means that this is an organized system that says we are not going to hear you, right? And this can happen in our own programming, in the work that we do on a daily basis. There can be spaces where people are not listening to us because we've not identified what other power is in the room. Like, yeah, what other power is in the room? Who else is a stakeholder? Like, in this particular case, this particular group of gentlemen here, the power they hold here, they could switch me off, Now, and if this room was bigger, actually this good example is in church, When people go to sing on the microphone and they say how you need to be nice to the sound people, because if they decide, you're not going to be heard, you'll be screaming, then you're like, why is my throat sore? But it's because you didn't recognize that person as a stakeholder, that you also need to engage in the things that you're doing. So sometimes it's also that people have been so disenfranchised that they actually have internalized and said, this is the way things are. We don't have water in our community, that's okay. You know, they live with it. We don't, when we do XYZ for girls, we only do this. So the girls just dwell in that. They live with that because that's all we've offered them. All right, so I guess they're just notes I'd put together for us to be able to interrogate power, and as we continue to reflect on this exercise, we can see, like the circles, once I announced that they have more power, they suddenly started to take rights, yeah? Sometimes we have power over people, so we take what they have. It's a hierarchy. So what I say runs the day. I try to control people. Power with, we are a team. So we think about how are we coming into a project? How are we applying for this funding? Is it only the executive director who applies for funding, who can write a proposal, or can other people do it? Do other people help in this proposal writing and speaking to donors, going to meetings? All these are how, as people in leadership, we can share power. Power two. This is the acknowledgement that here we all have different abilities, and it is a good thing if I know your ability and you know mine, because sometimes maybe you're not good, maybe you like to write, yeah? And me, I just talk. If we sit together and we need to do a proposal, one of us can talk, the other one writes, because you're able to sense make what I'm saying, and that way we shorten the time that we would have spent doing a certain thing. So think about your team members. What abilities do they bring, and how can you utilize them? And that you only utilize that when you start to realize you're not a center of power. When you say, no, I'm actually not the center of power in this organization, I want to share my power, then you are likely to succeed in what you're doing. And then the power within. We are all here because we definitely believe that there's something that can change about us and about our organizations. We already had a conversation with the coaches earlier, trying to identify what's a possible starting area for the coaching program that we are going to be on. Now, tomorrow when you meet with the coach and they are telling you, oh, I think, for example, the issue we are going to discuss is structures. You have to believe that you are the right people to work on whatever you have agreed. And then later on, they'll give you exercises, which you do. Every 2 weeks, you come back. If you don't do those exercises, they impact what you take out of this particular program.